You know the deal. I'm sorry, John.
That's okay.
I had you circled.
If you hurt my foot, you have to try real hard to hurt my foot.
That's good, yeah. Okay, our Public Safety Committee meeting will now come to order. Have all of the members had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting? If so, all in favor?
Make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, so motion passes. For our new business, we have Chief Blakeney and Scott Holmes, the ordinance amending section 1(8)A of the Code of Tuscaloosa.
I'll come over on this side, Mr. Bug, so I'm not standing right behind you.
That's okay, I need to move up to
I know we have several things today, so I'll try to go through this fairly quickly. I'll kind of start with our problem and why we're at this solution and what the solution does. This initially kind of came up with Chief and his folks looking for a solution for the increased number of people running from the police when we attempt to pull them over. As you recall, one of the things we've been working on is potentially issuing citations for misdemeanor level possession of marijuana, with hopes that people will realize I'm not going to jail, I can just stop and get my ticket. Hopefully that will help. But one of the things that Chief was looking for was for our ability to carry a larger hammer in municipal court. So he met with me and my prosecutors to discuss going to a higher punishment on attempting to elude. The real problem, the practical problem we face there is the punishment we were typically seeing, or the kind of increased step that TPD was looking to see would put us at our maximum offer. From a practical standpoint, while we can certainly make maximum offers in cases, and there are certainly cases we do that, if every case gets a maximum offer, you end up trying every case, you end up on appeal with every case, and you end up in circuit court in 3 years before anything ever happens. And so that's practically not a great way to do things. But there is a provision in state code that would kind of open up our toolbox a little bit. This is something that was changed a few years ago. It's something that we haven't utilized previously because, frankly, I think what the legislature did here is far from perfect way of doing this. And kind of on our future legislative roadmap, I think there's a better way to do this that my office would like to see. That being said, we have an actual problem and a decent solution. And so what we're looking at doing is Alabama Code Section 11-45-9. That is what sets penalties for ordinance violations. What will be familiar in that to you guys is the portion that my office will tell you a whole bunch of times, except as otherwise provided in this section, no fine shall exceed $500 and no sentence of imprisonment or hard labor shall exceed 6 months. And so that's our $500 180-day max for ordinance violations that y'all hear frequently. There are some exceptions to that. One exception is DUI, and it sets out separate punishment for DUI. It sets out a maximum fine of $1,000 for a couple specific things. And most relevant to this discussion, they added something a few years ago that says, in the enforcement of a Class A misdemeanor, the fine, including domestic violence, the fine may not exceed $5,000 and the sentence of imprisonment may not exceed 1 year. So what we're asking you to do on the ordinance you see before you is, instead of in our code as it reads currently, which we just adopt what was previously the state law limit, 180 days, $500, we're asking you to just fully adopt punishment as set out under 1145-9. And so that would mean in the state law offenses that are Class A misdemeanors that we've adopted as city offenses, that would increase our potential range of punishment, and we could start offering people 6 months in the county jail for running from the police.
That put some teeth in it.
Well, our tenants to lose, they went up last night. Last night we had 2 different car chases last night.
Yeah.
The problem with attempting to lose are these, I'm not talking about them offering 6 months or a year for somebody who went 35 miles an hour, 5 blocks trying to get to their grandma's house.
Yeah.
Because they're hoping their car ain't getting towed. You know, we do have those, but our high-speed pursuits, personally, I think they should be felonies. You're putting the officers at life and the general public in life's in danger doing that. So we went to Scott's office and said, hey, look, we're having a lot more car chases. These are high-speed chases. Is there any way that there can be more punishment? So somebody says, hey, I sat in jail last time on 7 months on this attempted elude. I ain't doing that anymore. I'm just going to pull over. And that's what we're hoping to kind of curb some of that behavior, because it is extremely dangerous. I really think it should be a felony if it hits a certain speed, but I don't have control over state law.
And my prosecutor looks at the facts. Attempting to elude is one of those charges that the facts in each attempting to elude case can be very different. Because we do have the going way back, the common issue of, I'm 2 blocks from home, I don't want my car to be impounded, I'm just gonna get to the driveway and driving 35 miles an hour until they get there. You can't do that, that's illegal, but that is a very different thing from hitting the gas, taking off at 75 miles an hour down McFarland.
But the officer doesn't know that that's his intent. He has no idea.
No, and that's why it comes in for that city prosecutor to look at the facts of the case and say, hey, look, this one we're gonna try and give this offer for, or hey, we're gonna take this one to a trial, whatever they do. We leave that up to them on their judgment. That's why our branch is separate form of government.
It's a really tough decision to make at the time. Sometimes it really is.
And, sorry.
I was just gonna say, that officer doesn't know if they ran the stop sign and doesn't want to stop, or they ran the stop sign because they just shot their grandmother. They don't know.
They could have somebody held hostage in the backseat. One of the things I do want to make sure we state publicly while we're talking about this is running from the police is not a very good proposition in this town.
Right.
The vast, probably 95% of the time, we catch the person that's run from us.
Yeah.
And they end up going to jail.
Well, I see that in at least one big city in our country, they're encouraging people to run from the police. And that's just dangerous to me for everybody.
Chief, have you seen a uptick in people running from the police in our city?
Absolutely.
You know,
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's, my personal opinion, it's a state of the country right now. I think a couple of years ago, there was such a mistrust of police, and that's when we started seeing it going up. So we've seen an increase. There's no way to doubt it. Young people, they are also different. If they don't want to pull over, they're not going to pull over, they're going to run, and then we're going to chase them as long as we feel it's safe to do so. We also terminate a lot of pursuits. I want to make that very clear. If we believe that it is too dangerous and what they've done does not justify that, we terminate a lot of pursuits as well. But we have seen an uptick. I think a lot of it has to do, with authority issues of, hey, I'm not going to pull over. So we've seen a lot more over the last 2 years.
If you wanna put your guys through that obstacle course.
We can put them through an obstacle course.
man, and get in that cold
And
river.
We've seen so much of that, that's why we contacted city legal and say, hey, is there anything we can do about this? Because my thing is, if you sit in jail, for 7 months on attempted elude, next time you're like, hey man, I ain't doing that again. Especially, we're trying to.
Yeah, definitely think
If
about
you got a
that.
dime bag in your car or something like that,
Yeah.
we can do your ticket, have be on
See
your
what I'm
way.
saying?
Give me my ticket, bro.
Or if your money misses all the summer because you ran from the police, you
Right,
probably
yeah,
gotta run
right.
yourself.
But then
Right.
both the ones last night have.
Yes, both of that, they get it with felonies.
So what we're being asked to vote on today is to give the city the authority to place a 6 months jail time.
What you're doing is you're amending our punishment portion under section 1-8A of the code to allow us to fully utilize the range of punishment that
You can
we're
enhance it
authorized under
accordingly.
state law.
Understand.
Okay,
According per case, right?
according to what, case
Per
by
case.
case, per case,
yeah,
okay, everything on a case by case basis,
Our
okay, yeah.
prosecutor still has the discretion based upon the facts, and the municipal court judge still has the ability to sentence to whatever he sees fit.
I mean, we
Okay.
need.
We have no,
This is just removing our cap
Okay.
of $500 in 180 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's easy.
Any more questions or comments on that? So we actually need to vote on this, so can I
make a
get a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes, thank you. Chief and Scott Holmes.
So does this just move on to full council and the normal progression?
Okay, Chief Blakeney, you're up again.
And I
Okay.
can start this, and Chief can fill in any blanks on this one. You may recall your legislative agenda this year, something TPD's been asking for a couple of years. was the amendment to a local act to give our police department the option to do 10-hour shifts
4 days a week,
in
right?
some instances.
So they have some
They'll work,
rest.
Patrol officers will work 10-hour shifts, administration and all the investigators will stay on 8-hour shifts.
Okay,
Under prior law, you could have a patrol, you could make it work somebody 4 10s. But they're
okay.
gonna get overtime for 2 hours of
hours
every
every
one of
day.
those days over 8 hours.
Chief, are your supervisors included in this as patrol? All them work
Yes,
14?
everybody's included. I think the major would probably be the only one that will remain on 8s.
Right.
So he can oversee 5 days a week. And like I said, all investigators will stay 8 hours a day. If an officer that typically works 10-hour shifts, and works over that, they'll be paid overtime. But if an officer that typically works 8-hour shifts, anything over 8 will be overtime.
Okay,
And this, the chief could probably explain a little bit more. One of the reasons they want to do this is this allows, I believe, an overlapping of shifts that ultimately acts as a force multiplier.
Basically, we're gonna call it power shift. We're gonna have an extra group of officers on duty during our high time periods, or the high crime and call periods. So we're hoping that more officers on the street will help us better handle the calls. But doing the 10s allows us to overlap.
So under the amended legislation, we need a resolution authorizing that, and so that's what this resolution is.
Make
okay.
a motion.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and just for the record, since I didn't read it, number 2 was the resolution authorizing 10-hour shifts for certain positions in the Tuscaloosa Police Department, and the motion passed, so thank you. Number 3, once again, y'all are running the show today, so.
This is a standard MOU. This basically says that we work with DHR. Every agency in the county works with them. We report any child abuse cases,
Okay.
any sexual abuse of child cases, or anything like that. So it's a standard MOU for us.
Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, resolution authorizing the Tuscaloosa Police Department to sign agreement to the review of child abuse cases in the Tuscaloosa County, and we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And motion passes. Okay, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, ma'am. This is kind of going back to the 10-hour shift topic. These are a couple portions of the personnel portion of our code that were kind of tied to the old 8-hour shift.
Okay.
This just cleans up some of that.
Okay, so can I get a motion for amending section 1961C?
Motion.
Second.
Can I second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
But just so I'm clear, that's for 1961C and 19.
In 19145, yes. So for the record, we just had a motion and a second for ordinance amending section 1961C and 19145 of the Code of Tuscaloosa. All right. Next, we have Ms. Kemp.
Yes, thank you. This is a request to adopt the auxiliary school resource officer job description. These officers will perform duties in school security work in our Tuscaloosa City schools.
Yeah, and I'll kind of go while we did this. We currently have 4 positions open that we can't fill. The job, it doesn't pay a whole lot. We have a lot of retired officers that fill it. We want to make that job more attractive so we can hopefully fill all positions that we have. So what we're doing is kind of thinking out of the box a little bit. Those officers will only work while school's in session. They'll be out every summer. They'll be out every holiday, spring break. They'll get paid across 12 months, just kind of like a teacher does. Their pay will be spread out over those 12 months. But we
Okay.
thought it'd be more attractive if somebody said, hey, I'm just gonna work the school year. I'm retired. I still have my 2 months off every summer. And kind of have that break. And we've talked to our current auxiliary school officers, and they love it. They're excited. There's been some
Okay.
interest from other retired officers saying, hey, if y'all do that, I'll come work. So we're excited about this. It's kind of different than anything we've done. Normally they work, 52 weeks a year, but this is going to let them work just when school's in session. If school's canceled that day, they got the day off.
Okay,
So it's really just that school schedule for those auxiliary officers.
Chief, let me ask you this question because I think this is an awesome idea. I know in some schools, some school resource officers are very much engaged. Some may not be as engaged. Is there any way to kind of make it kind of uniform across the board where all those school resource officers are engaged? Because I think that will better help relationships with children and staff and parents, as well as, grow the fear of crime.
We try and get them all to engage. We have 2 different classifications in our schools right now.
Okay,
We have Tuscaloosa police officers that are school resource officers.
okay,
They're sworn full-time, and then we have auxiliary officers.
okay,
So we have a lot of people inside those schools right now. And we've got some auxiliary officers that do an amazing job,
right.
and we've got SROs that do an amazing job. We put them through training and try and get them to relate to the kids. One thing that we are looking at doing, and we've already talked to the schools about it, and Chief Sanders is working on it for next year, not this coming up year, but the following year, is to get a school program, whether it be DARE or any other type of school program. We're looking at different ones, what's most popular right now. And then those auxiliaries and SROs will actually be engaged with those instructors inside those schools to help them work with the kids, get more engaged with the kids and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We saw a little push where, when we first started putting auxiliaries that, some of the teachers wanted them to discipline, and we're not there to discipline or anything like that. We're there to protect them. But we want them to engage and be a role model for those students inside those schools. So I really think if we get a program back in schools, it'll engage those officers even more to where the students, young and old, can trust in them and talk to them a whole lot more. So.
Well, Chief, I would just like to say that, so to do anything that we can do to boost our morale in the police department, I'm with it, and I appreciate this because that does sound very appealing. And that relationship between our officers and our students is very important because when I was younger, I think at Oakdale we had Officer Green and then we had Miss Leatherwood. And so I remember those DARE classes and all of the events that they did. It really did make a difference, and that's something that our kids don't really they don't know now. It was more than just being there for a field day. They were there every day. They knew our parents. They knew us. So I appreciate this and hopes this helps out. And just for clarification, our when you say we have our officers and then our auxiliary officers, each school gets either or, not both, right?
Yeah, they get either or. Most all of our schools, if we can get the auxiliary, I think we're posting 5 auxiliary positions. Once this is classified, I believe we should have enough for every school in the city if all those are filled. And like I said, the auxiliary officers, a lot of those are retired officers, and they're basically coming back paying into the state as far as state pension and that kind of stuff. So they're fully trained, fully certified. Most of them are retired. They come back and we don't get Social Security, so a lot of them are trying to get their Social Security points. And they love kids, and they still. I mean, we're cops. We do this our entire life, so it's tough for them to come back. That's what we know. So with this schedule, when I retire, I'm probably gonna do the same thing. I want my summers off.
Y'all got a position for fail?
Fail is too old. But I have a comment. These guys are at the tip of the spear if something awful happened at a school. And my feelings are we're not paying them near enough, Chief. And I know that's not up to
raise that pay.
So about the school resource officers?
I'm all for it. That's gonna be up to
These
you.
are some of the lowest paid
do
people in the
do
city.
we pay the school resource officer or do the school system pay them?
It's
understand.
separate. SROs are under the regular full-time.
Help me understand, Chief.
Scott decided not to
You got 2 different
interject.
groups. We have auxiliary, and that's what this is gonna be. Then you have regular police officers that are SROs. The PD pays for the SROs. And then the school also, they have some contract officers at the high schools that they give extra money to and hire those officers working off duty basically at the schools as well. And then we have the auxiliary officers on top of that, and the PD pays for that. The auxiliary officer pay, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I should know that, but I don't. LaShawna may know it. It's not that high.
Because I wonder when they transfer and become all school resource auxiliary officers to get a higher wage, because they're going to be doing, like you say, Mr. Feld, they're going to be at the tip of anything that happens, And
I think part of when the position was originally created, one of the things where they would be allowed to get a second retirement because of course they get the retirement from the police and fire pension, and then now they would also get a second retirement from RSA.
Try and get vested.
Excuse me, for them to get vested
Oh, so with the school system.
with us.
Oh, okay, with us. Okay.
So it would be one
Help
of
me
2
out.
different retirements they would be able to potentially draw from.
The school board reimburses all the overtime for all sporting events and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I read that. I read that. Yes,
So
sir. I read
what's the
that.
total number of uniformed
I've got
police that we have dedicated to schools? And that would be both your sworn that are regular paid officers be the
I
auxiliary.
think 11, but I'm not positive.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't wanna give you a false number.
even.
I'm thinking we've
It's
got
about
around,
a dozen.
yeah, I'm thinking we have
And
around
we're
7
four
regular,
going to 5.
but I'll have
Yes,
to,
sir. There's a request.
5 additional. We have 4 vacancies we cannot fill for auxiliaries. They've sat there, nobody will apply for them. So this is what, I'm sitting here racking my brain saying, hey, what can we do? And I'm like, wait a minute. If we can give summers off, holidays off, spring breaks off, that may make it more, somebody may be, hey, I like that, because it's a full-time job, but you still got summers off to spend with your kids when they're out, your grandkids, and all that. So we're kind of racking our brain trying to think of something to make it more attractive.
And
We're gonna have
what do I
to-
get paid for that?
You know the thing.
The range is $33,005.71 to $43,796.
So if I meet the qualifications, I can have a full-time job in the 33 to 43,000 range, but summers, Thanksgiving break, spring break, Christmas,
Every
snow
weekend.
days,
Snow
teacher
day.
in service.
Senior
Yeah,
skip day.
yeah.
They just skip that.
But right now, they're working for that
Teacher
money
in service.
year-round.
Yeah, right now it's year round.
And this, I don't think this is necessarily for an answer right now, but we've heard recently multiple mentions of, oh, well, we're gonna hire off the, and certainly in the bar trade, that's been a hot topic of conversation in the, the motel presentation. We're considering hiring off-duty,
There's only so many.
where are they?
There's only the motel. That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah,
But
that-
my thing is the school does contract some officers. They basically, if you have a midnight shift officer, school contract them. I know the high schools, they go work for 6-7 hours, and the schools pay for those contract officers to have additional people in those schools.
Gotcha.
But the current table of manning is about a dozen,
We got
and about 4 or 5 short at the moment.
yes, sir. For the auxiliaries.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the creation of auxiliary school resource officer job classification passes. Next, we have Chief Smith and Scott Holmes to talk about our Independence Day briefing.
We haven't had it addressed first.
Okay.
Do you want me to lay sort of the groundwork on this? Y'all may know that fireworks are illegal in the city of Tuscaloosa, and I know dating back to when this
Or
table.
legal or illegal?
Illegal.
You wouldn't know it.
No, you wouldn't know that.
Dating back.
No offense to the chief.
Dating back several years, this was a question that would come up, the news media would usually around this time of year, would start asking, and then somebody would say why, and then we have to go reinvent the wheel and figure out that ultimately the why is because you guys adopt a fire code, and it was illegal within that fire code. Back in January of this year, we kind of pulled that provision out of the fire code
Okay.
and put it directly into the city code. Subsequently, the state changed some state laws with regard to fireworks. I don't think that makes a huge difference in kind of where we have been, but it has shined a light onto our prohibition under city code, which was directly pulled from the fire code. Am I making any sense yet?
Not yet.
A little bit.
Trying to follow.
A little bit.
So part of the problem, this section makes better sense in an adopted fire code than directly in municipal code. And the reason
Okay.
why is we have a general prohibition, which is how we enforce laws, right? Everything's legal until the government says it's illegal for you to do this. And so we have a general prohibition, but then we have an exception that says we're otherwise allowed. And so our exception to our prohibition puts us, in my opinion, into kind of a logic black hole that makes this largely unenforceable
Okay.
for a specific portion of fireworks, which is Division 1.4G fireworks. And I know you all know what those are. These are
Of course.
the
I bought them
novelty
every year.
things that are your sparklers, your smoke bombs, the snakes that you burn in your driveway that you never
Okay.
get that little circle off.
Mhm.
Generally those types of things. We're seeing this, we've heard from a company that intends to sell these in the state limits. I know other large cities have as well. I'm of the opinion, I know Steins and I have not always seen eye to eye on this weird thing. I'm of the opinion that at least unless we take further action to clarify our prohibition, that we can't enforce our prohibition against those novelty items.
Okay.
One of the things, and I don't know if you guys have heard from some of the lobbyists for some of the companies, the state did a very kind of a bizarre thing in the state law, which it said, the city, if you want to prohibit this, you can pass an ordinance prohibiting it. So their lobbyist has taken the stance that any city that previously had an ordinance had to pass yet another ordinance. I think that is 100% incorrect. I don't think that's our problem here. I think if we want to prohibit those novelty types of fireworks, then we would need to clean up our code. If we're okay with those novelty types of fireworks being sold in the city limits, quite frankly, I don't know how much of a difference it would make on being used in the city limits or not. Then we stay as is.
So as is right now, what is it as is?
As is, we would not be, as is, I believe that these Division 1.4G, which they can speak to better, I may have, if I've misdescribed them, would be legal in the city limits. That's smoke bombs, your sparklers, your snakes, not your bottle rockets, not your Roman candles, not the big round things that shoot up in the air.
Round items.
Chief, what do you think?
From a health and safety, every year you're looking somewhere in the neighborhood nationally of 16,000 fires started due to
Okay.
fireworks.
How many we had here? Cause
Wait.
we're trying to evaluate ourselves while we talking.
Because all on the fourth, we're gonna get calls.
I know, we're the bad guys in this area. Usually we've seen somewhere 4 or 5 different types of responses. Very blessed and fortunate, we have not had a major incident.
Okay.
We do provide, such as for the 4th of July celebration that we'll be having on the river, we have a fire truck that stands by. We
Yeah.
have a fire cart that'll be standing by with paramedics in the area.
Mhm.
But also we have one of the fire marshals, actually from the time they get out there to set up, has to stay with them and monitor their setup from start to the end of the shoot.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, that costs us quite a bit of money.
But that's not gonna stop them from going to Northport and down to Mount and picking up the
You know,
fireworks.
and
Bring them
still,
back
you see them
home.
set up everywhere.
Mhm.
I can't give you, quote, a lot of real good statistics based on the injuries because of HIPAA, but what we have been able to gather, looking at reports back from 2019, nationally again, we saw around 10,000 injuries.
Mm.
There was a 5,600 jump in injuries to 15,600 in
Gotcha.
2020.
Mm.
Our biggest thing, yes, we're gonna respond and we're gonna throw all the resources we have to in a fire.
Mhm.
We will contain it, we will eventually get it extinguished. Our largest concern is injuries.
Mhm.
Sparkler itself, even though all kids love sparklers, parents love to give sparklers, burns, the tip of the sparkler burns depending on the chemical makeup or composition, anywhere between 1,800 degrees and 3,000 degrees. So that's kind of where we're at. And now we'll be seeing these devices being able to, during certain windows around New Year's Eve and around the 4th of July area, they'll be able to be sold at Lowe's, Walmart's, Targets, and eventually at any store.
Oh, wow.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, just reiterate what Chief Smith just said. These items that they're marketing as safe still cause injuries and fires, bottom line. The NFPA still classifies 1.4s as fireworks. The state has cleverly redefined what fireworks are and have extracted certain items like smoke bombs, sparklers, fountains, non-aerial devices, and reclassified them and put them in their own little novelties and sparkling devices categories. So it makes it to where you can sell some of these items locally at your Dollar Generals, Walmarts, or whatever. So, being in the risk reduction business, the fire marshal's office, we sort of feel that that's just, even though we know people go outside of the corporate limits and purchase these types of
Right,
devices,
that's right.
making them more readily available is still going to increase
Sure.
the number of injuries and fires that we do have, and it also can potentially create some confusion because the general public just knows fireworks are fireworks. They don't know, well, these are novelties, these are illegal in Tuscaloosa. The bottle rockets and the Roman candles are illegal. So they see fireworks and, hey, I can just go get them from anywhere. So now you've got them bringing in stuff from all over the place. So
Well,
that's sort of my worry with all of this.
I get enough calls on the 4th of July, New Year's Eve. People's dogs go crazy. And I can't help but think this would be the same thing with some animals.
Chief Blankley, is there? Did I wake you up?
I know what problems we have. Even my kids watching this like, Mama, you better.
Now back to the PD.
So.
This the hardest one of the day right here.
A, could you afford it completely? And B, is there an uptick in criminality simultaneously with the fireworks? Because it was last year in Birmingham, big shootout downtown that was masked
Well,
by the fireworks.
let me explain our 4th of July and our New Year's every year. We have lots of fireworks, lots of gunshots.
Yeah, they're right.
Literally both of them. So you have both of them. As far as enforcing, what we typically do at the PD level is if we get a call and we're not busy, let me express that, 'cause we'll have 30 fireworks calls on the screens. We're doing other stuff, we try and get to them, but when we finally get to them, we'll go to the house first, like, hey, you can't shoot them in the city limits.
Okay.
Put them away, go to the county. We're not just gonna go over there, write citation, let there go. Now, if we go back to the house 2 or 3 times, at that point, we'll go ahead and say, we'll tell them, hey, the next time we come out here, you're gonna get a citation for shooting fireworks in the city limits. It's a city citation, and we'll confiscate the fireworks. Because we just simply do not have time to keep going and going. So like I said, that we do have the gunshots and we do have the fireworks. But as far as seeing an uptick in crime from fireworks, no. But it is, a big part of our time. We pretty much have to extra patrol the fireworks until our call volume goes down.
Well, Randy told me he'd buy me lunch if I drug you
I
out.
think it's always, it's always at the end of the day, the fire department is good guys.
So y'all, this is a difficult one. So you're saying that if we approve this, then we give the stores
This is
just information.
Yeah.
So what happens after today? Will the stores be able to sell the novelty items or what?
Nothing's gonna change after today.
Okay.
The stores, I'm of the opinion that the stores can sell these novelty
As of
items
now.
And so I guess probably the best course of action after today is monitor what this is the first time we've seen this. And if you see every time you go to Dollar General now, you're starting to see smoke bombs, snakes, sparklers constantly. We're starting to see a big uptick in issues with it, or you're hearing concerns from your citizens. Then we can come back and look at any amendments that council may desire.
Okay, Chief Langley, I have another question for you. So on the 4th, I get lots of calls about gunshots and the fireworks. So how should we effectively handle these calls? Should we automatically just call the police department about every call that we get, or?
They already probably called them and us.
You're right.
Our dispatch, and we ask, our dispatch will ask, and now when you actually call 3-5-21-20, when you talk to a human, let me be very clear on that. It's no more talking to a machine, I took care of that.
Good deal, Chief.
So you talk to a human. If somebody thinks it's gunshots, we respond right away. But if they can tell it's fireworks, if your neighbor just will not shut them down,
Okay.
just be like, hey, look, can you please come by when you have time and talk to neighbors about shooting fireworks? And then we'll prioritize those, but definitely still call. If it's just a little annoying and you're like, hey, but once it starts to get especially later and later and later, and you can't sleep or something like that, give us a call. But just know that if they do call right away, we may not be able to respond right away depending on what we have. But we will check them all off the list as we go through. Officers will, en route to other calls, will go through and see if they've stopped or if they're still going, they'll go talk to them. But definitely still call us, especially if it's a hindrance. If it's just 1 or 2 fireworks, you're like, hey, like I said, you don't have to call us on that. But if it's a problem, we're getting multiple calls anyways.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that.
I'll be working that night, so y'all got my cell.
I do just want to say, because this is important, I don't think we talked about it very quickly, but the number to call the police department, it has become simplified, and you no longer have to go through the process of dialing 2 and then 9 and then all of that. So I do want to encourage the community to continue to call the police department when you have those non-emergency calls. And Chief, that number is
Yeah, emergency line 911, of course, non-emergency 349-2121, it goes straight to a dispatcher, so there's no more pushing buttons or trying to figure out if you need this or that. You talk to a human and we're there to serve you.
on the 4th of July. The amphitheater gates open at 6, and we believe the fireworks show will start around 9, and there will be free activities for the kids, correct? And everyone is welcome to come out and watch the fireworks down on the river in a controlled, safe environment. Counselors, do y'all want to say anything to y'all constituents about the 4th? How to contact you, what to do?
No.
Okay.
Extra ribs, the
No.
number is.
Listen, I want y'all to have fun, and I want you to be safe, and I want you to enjoy your family reunions. We're coming out of COVID, and everybody's going to the country and coming to the city.
Yeah.
Come to Tuscaloosa, spend a lot of money and revenue in our hotels. We look forward to you having a great 4th and 4th event, and just maintain and be safe.
If there's nothing else on the Reverend,
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
adjourn.
I second that
I
motion.
third that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.